Barbie is the new hit summer film that features everyone's favorite childhood toy, the polyglot duo-lingo Barbie. Okay, no, I'm joking, but I watched the Barbie movie on Thursday to see if all the hype was really worth it, and here's my 2 cents. Before I get started though, I just wanted to give a quick spoiler warning. Please click away if you want to avoid any spoilers for the film. Also, I didn't originally plan to make a review of this film, so when I walked into the theater, I never took any notes, and I might miss a few cool things that happened in the film, so if there's anything you enjoyed that I didn't mention, feel free to leave it in a comment below. And finally, while watching this video, keep in mind that this is my opinion and interpretation of the movie. Other people will have different opinions, and that's totally cool. Let's just keep it civil, please. Before I get into some of the heavier and deeper parts of the film, I want to talk a bit about some of my favorite small details. First, there were a ton of Easter eggs, mostly including references to other Barbie media, such as a Barbie dressed as a fairy in a nod to the 2011 film A Fairy's Secret, and a Pegasus statue on the beach in Barbie Land that could refer to 2005's The Magic of Pegasus. Other Easter eggs include a line of discontinued dolls that are referenced or seen in the film. The biggest role for these dolls is Alan, the doll who is Ken's buddy and can fit into all his clothes. There's also the pregnant Barbie Midge. Barbie's sister Skipper is also featured in the movie, and comically, the only other instance of a Barbie traveling to the real world involved Skipper, surfing, and a babysitting gig gone wrong. I personally did not notice this Easter egg, but reportedly Margot Robbie's favorite Easter egg in the film included the moment when Ruth Handler, the creator of Barbie, gives Barbie a cup of tea and their hands touch, like in the painting The Creation of Adam. It's an imitation of the biblical moment that God gives life to the first man, just as Ruth gives life to Barbie. I also liked the campiness of the film. The feud between Ryan Gosling and Simu Liu's Kens is totally spoofy and comical, as is the reaction to Barbie's flat feet, the Ken puns such as Kenergy and I am Kenough, and the most amazing dream house to ever be introduced in the history of Barbie and Ken, the Mojo Dojo Casa house. Also, Lizzo's song Pink starts up as the audience is first introduced to Barbie's perfect daily routine in Barbie Land, and the next day it's the same upbeat song, but as things start to go wrong, the lyrics start changing and Lizzo sounds more and more concerned and confused, and I just really liked that. Additionally, I thought the narrator of the film popping in occasionally to add something was rather funny, especially when Barbie was at a low point and was crying about feeling ugly, and the narrator suddenly said something along the lines of, "Note to the audience, Margot Robbie is not the person to cast if you want this to feel real." And the best moment of the film, in my opinion, just as I had predicted, was the duo-lingo cameo. It had me kicking in my seat with excitement and turning to my friends to make sure they all absorbed the fact that this was the moment I had been waiting for. This was also simultaneously the worst part of the film in my opinion, because they had the opportunity to bring the duo mascot out into Barbie Land, and the cameo was just Gloria's husband using the app to learn Spanish. There was so much wasted potential. With that aside, let's talk a bit about the important themes that the Barbie movie covers. Of course, one of, if not the most important theme in the Barbie movie is the experience of women. In Barbie Land, women have it all. They are treated with basic human dignity, and they hold occupations in all places. In fact, they have it all to a rather extreme point in which the Kens are not given the same opportunity as the Barbies, and are kind of shoved off to the side. And the feeling that that creates for some people is 100% intentional. I've heard a number of reactions to the movie from a certain demographic, in which after seeing how the Kens are treated more so as accessories to the Barbies, they slap the label man-hating on the film, all because it made them uncomfortable to watch. Yet that is exactly what it was supposed to do. If watching how things functioned in Barbie Land made you uncomfortable, that is good. The messages in a lot of films are supposed to make you uncomfortable. They're supposed to make you think. The experience of Kens in Barbie Land sure as hell wasn't supposed to be comfortable, and that's the experience of women in the real world. Also, I can confidently say that the Barbie movie is not promoting a world in which men are put down so that women can take their places. If those who left the theater because the movie was man-hating had stayed to the end, they would have seen Barbie comfort Ken, apologize for not treating him as a serious person, and encourage him to be his own person. The treatment of Kens in Barbie Land is meant to mirror the treatment of women in the real world. And even then, the Kens were ignored, not hated, and undervalued, not sexualized, while women in the real world are often treated in all of those ways. So if the situation the Kens were in made you uncomfortable as a member of the audience, imagine how women feel in the real world. That is one of the major points of Barbie. The film isn't trying to say that women should have power over men, but to draw men's attention to how women are seen and treated by the patriarchy. The moment Barbie steps into the real world, she is catcalled, sexually harassed, chewed out by another feminine character, and faces a number of degrading situations. When one calls the Barbie movie anti-men, they aren't understanding the deeper meaning of the film and are subsequently admitting that the world we live in today is anti-women. A lot of the hate that the film has received in the context of it being too woke or feminist only further proves the point of the film. Also, it's satire. When America Ferrera's character Gloria rants about the treatment and experience of being a woman in the real world to Barbie, she highlights many important things. I've heard some talk about Gloria's monologue as lengthy or exaggerated, but it was far from being lengthy in my opinion. It felt less like a rant of Gloria's feelings, but more of a truth of the society we live in. The double standards that the majority of Gloria's monologue highlights really stood out to me. It does seem like with a lot of things in society that there are always these double standards that just really suck everything out of you and leave you stressed, confused, and struggling to navigate life. Other parts that stand out to me specifically include when Gloria says, quote, like, we have to always be extraordinary, but somehow we're always doing it wrong, end quote. Which she adds to by saying, quote, you're supposed to stay pretty for men, but not too pretty that you tempt them too much, or that you threaten other women because you're supposed to be a part of the sisterhood, end quote. This brings up some very important points involving sexual harassment and assault, especially the commonly used excuse that the victims were asking for it or tempting the perpetrator, so therefore the victim is not a victim and is to blame for the actions of the perpetrator, which is just entirely wrong and far too commonly accepted in society. We see it everywhere and cannot escape it anywhere, with catcalling on the street, through comments and messages online, and even within victims' own households. It is constantly a source of stress and pressure put on women for the most part. Gloria also says, quote, you have to never get old, never be rude, never show off, never be selfish, never fall down, never fail, never show fear, never get out of line, end quote. And then adds, quote, and it turns out, in fact, that not only are you doing everything wrong, but also everything is your fault, end quote. This brings up some of the impossible expectations that are put on women by society, by men, and even by other women. Finally, Gloria adds, quote, I'm just so tired of watching myself and every single other woman tie herself into knots so that people will like us, end quote. It just seems like whatever women specifically try to do, people find a reason to hate on them for it. And typically this hatred comes from a masculine energy, but it also often comes from other women themselves. And I think another big message that Barbie was trying to get across to its feminine audience is the importance of solidarity, standing by other feminine people in a world that isn't the kindest to them. I think the criticism that this monologue receives is really just from certain groups that hear this and do not take it as seriously as they should because they don't understand that experience. They've never felt that way themselves because the society we live in supports them more, and therefore it enables them to hear the monologue and not think much of it, or even find it annoying or pointless because in their minds, there isn't much of a problem with the society we live in. I think that generally there is this common experience in which, say, Group A hears Group B express a feeling or concern that they have about something, and then Group A ignores or laughs at it because they don't experience the same concern. And that's freaking crazy to me. Just because something doesn't apply to you doesn't mean that it doesn't apply to other people, and I think we should be listening to and acknowledging the troubles of others, not shaming them. Honestly, I find it kind of funny, because as I write the script for this video, I keep thinking about how to particularly word things and be careful so that I don't upset anyone or cause anyone to be angry with me for talking about how I feel about the themes of the Barbie movie as the person I am in society, and that fear that I have is exactly part of what the Barbie movie is trying to draw attention to. If feminine people say the sort of things that were said in the Barbie movie, they receive hate. And the hate that the Barbie movie has received so far has literally proved that point. I think that maybe some see media such as Barbie and think it's meant to raise women up and put men down, but it's never been that. I think the ending of the film really tries to bury that hatchet. It tries to reach out to the people in the audience who might feel uncomfortable or vulnerable after watching a film in which men had fewer opportunities than women and were overlooked, and women were encouraged and uplifted, and it tries to get them to acknowledge the problems that women face in society and understand that we all need to treat each other with a little more care and respect. Now, I don't want to keep you all on one topic for too long, so another sort of sub-theme from Barbie that I thought was really sweet, and I mentioned in my previous video before I watched the film, was this theme of growing old, and how aging doesn't have to be a scary or ugly thing. When Barbie first gets to the real world, after she has had an earth-shattering experience and learned that the real world is absolutely not what she made it out to be, she sits on a bus stop bench next to an old woman and just looks at her for a while. In Barbie Land, nothing changes. The old woman smiles at her, and I think at this moment Barbie kind of has a revelation that life is beautiful. Living is beautiful. And Barbie smiles back and calls the old woman beautiful. Additionally, Ryan Gosling was perfect for the role of Ken, as some people criticized his age, calling him too old to play Ken, which is not common to hear about male actors, but actresses commonly face that sort of backlash, and Ken's purpose in Barbie Land was to reflect how women are treated in the real world. Finally, the ending of the film was huge for this part of the theme. After everything has been set to be better than it was before in Barbie Land, Barbie feels like she doesn't know what her purpose is anymore, that it can't just be being stereotypical Barbie. Ruth, the creator of Barbie, or rather her ghost actually, has a heartfelt moment with Barbie to try and give her a sense of peace. And we see a rather emotional montage that expresses the experiences of women, specifically that of being a mother and growing old, and it's beautiful. The cycle of life is beautiful, and it gives Barbie the clarity she needs to understand that she wants to experience life. In the end, before being frustrated or being quick to hate on the film, it's important to notice the irony in Barbie as well. For goodness sakes, it's Barbie. I'm not quite sure what some people were expecting from this film when they leave negative reviews talking about how the film focused on women. Also, the film is pretty camp, meaning it's supposed to be exaggerated, ironic, and amusing. And of course, Barbie focuses on drawing attention to the experience of women in the real world and their experiences under the patriarchy. I honestly thought that the movie touched on subjects a bit shallowly. The messages shared were important, and people, especially feminine people, who haven't heard those messages certainly need to hear them, but it wasn't anything new to me. I felt like they could have maybe dove a little bit deeper and touched on some more specific scenarios and topics that the Barbies would have faced in the real world, though with a focus on the experience of women and motherhood specifically, I think the movie did a good job honing in on its purpose. In the real world, women are not the only victims of sexualization, sexual harassment, and assault. Men are too. It's understandable that the Barbie movie focuses on women's struggles in the real world because of the higher rates of violence and inequality that they face, and of course this doesn't mean that male victims are in any way less important. In the end, it's just incredibly important to simply support and believe all victims. Also, Barbie's trip to the real world in which she visited Mattel and saw that everyone in charge was a man was a slight exaggeration. It gave Barbie the idea that the real world was the complete opposite of Barbie Land, but there are companies in our world with women CEOs and companies with women in high positions. Mattel's real board of directors features 5 women and 6 men, though Barbie isn't entirely off in her thinking, as it is still significantly less common to see a woman in those places than a man. Additionally, the Barbie movie's depiction of the real world is mainly set through Barbie and Ken's views. Ken sees the respect that men are given, and it inspires him, while Barbie sees the sexualization and degradation that women receive, and it breaks her down. Coming from a world in which every president ever has been a woman, and entering a world in which every president ever of the country you're in has been a man would be a culture shock to anyone. So in my opinion, the depiction of the real world in Barbie, while maybe a bit exaggerated to a member of the audience who actually lives in the real world, like me, is spot on for Barbie and Ken's views. Moving on, the characters in Barbie were pretty spot on for their roles, and I really enjoyed that. All of the actors did a fantastic job embodying their characters and bringing the Barbies to life. First, I really liked Michael Cera's role as Alan. He was the perfect, awkward, and kind of out of place, but still absolutely adored Alan. His goofy, unlike the others' nature, made him a bit of a breath of fresh air in Barbie Land. Secondly, Ryan Gosling did an incredible job with his role as Ken. He brought the comical, not the sharpest tool in the shed, Barbie-loving guy to life, but also added a lot of new depth to the character, with his feelings of being underappreciated, ignored, and left out, which of course, mixed with a lack of discussing his feelings with Barbie, led to the equally as comical, horse, patriarchy-loving Ken, who returned to Barbie Land and turned Barbie's perfect life into a dumpster fire with no remorse. Next, America Ferrera's character Gloria was really important for a lot of people in the audience. She highlights the ups and downs of the experience of women, and especially that of mothers. Her character is still humorous to fit in with the rest of the film, but also carries a lot of wisdom and reality with her, and in the end, brings that reality to the Barbies, just as that reality brought Barbie to her. And honestly, her character just feels like a warm and safe hug in a cruel, cold, and unfamiliar place. Also, I just feel like all of the Barbies did a magnificent job with their roles. They all nailed their comedic, bubbly, girl power personalities, as well as their own specializations, such as Dr. Barbie, Author Barbie, Physicist Barbie, Lawyer Barbie, and so many more. Finally, I definitely feel a need to talk about Barbie herself. Margot Robbie did an excellent job playing up the stereotypical Barbie. She, like the rest of the Barbies, nailed her comedic, bubbly, girl power personality, and then she also nailed the irrefutable thoughts of death existential crisis Barbie. Her reaction to and disappointment of the real world felt rather genuine, though when she was back in Barbie Land and was completely broken down by Ken's actions, her depression was more comical. I feel like this was almost intentional. Her thoughts and feelings in the real world were displayed as much more serious, like the real world itself, while her thoughts and feelings in Barbie Land, while still not very positive, were much more comedic, and I think Margot did a great job with that difference. Also, the switch from the comedic, plastic, and bubbly stereotypical Barbie at the start of the film to the wiser, living, and more serious Barbie at the end of the film was done really well. Margot Robbie did an excellent job at playing a doll and then switching to play a living woman. Before I wrap the video up, I just want to talk about the visuals in the Barbie movie. Again, since I didn't take many notes, I didn't really pay attention to the use of cinematic techniques, so I don't have much to say about that, but I think that the set designers and everyone did a really fantastic job making Barbie Land feel like Barbie Land. Like plastic. Everything looked super vibrant and toy-like in the way that things functioned, such as the orange juice carton not actually having any liquid in it, and the fridge being a mix of 3D plastic food items and 2D decals was spot on. The attention to detail was clearly there, so props to the team for that. In the end, I'd rate the Barbie movie a solid 4 out of 5 stars. It was super fun with its humor, characters, set, costumes, and music, and had some deep and important messages. I wish the film had maybe gone a little further with its messages, as I personally didn't take anything new from it, though I still found it super enjoyable, and the audience in the theater with me was rather lively, so I could tell they all enjoyed it as well. Barbie brought the audience of the showing I was at laughs, tears, and most importantly, a duo-lingo product placement ad. Thank you all for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider leaving a like and subscribe to help support me. Leave your thoughts on the film in the comments below, along with any recommendations of films I should take a look at next. And as always, remember to be good people, love others, and love yourself. Peace.